My name is Gyaya Ariati, and I hold the original Isis consciousness. I am of sound heart and sound mind, and the intention of this transmission and the truth of that which I've come to remember of the goddess Isis in this reality is being told for no other reason other than to bring awareness to the distortions that sit within our current perceived ideas of the Egyptian pantheon, of ascended mastery, to bring awareness to the concepts that are riddled within our history and yet are missing key information. My intention by sharing my story of remembrance is to activate others to remember themselves, to initiate them deeper into clearing and purifying their own coding, their own unique medicine, and the magic that each and every single one of us shares. The intention for me is to share for the betterment of humanity, to expose myself and the ones like me, and to bring a deeper understanding to the confusion that sits within the collective consciousness on these narratives. My intention is to inspire those to listen to their inner guidance and to begin the journey of remembering the true self. My intention is to be as thorough, truthful, and honest as I can be, in the awareness that what I have to share may cause many to disagree, challenge me, or to simply deny that which I have to share. All of that is welcome. As I am a human being in this experience, I am always open to questioning my narrative and where I have stepped out of tune. And so although this transmission is what I have come to in my remembrance up until this point in time, I am aware that that evolutionary process within myself in this incarnation will shift and change. I am aware that my brothers and sisters, the gods and the goddesses that I have journeyed time, space continuum with, will gift a additional perspective and deeper awareness as they come into the purification of themselves. That as each and every one of us transcends the human identity, otherwise known as the ego, that these truth will broaden, and our ability to share that truth will become more easeful and tangible to express to the human population. To share where the goddess Isis and her original truth, her story. We must first start from before ancient Egypt. The goddess Isis's consciousness existed well beyond and before the time of ancient Egypt. The consciousness that is currently devoted to or honored in sacred ritual, up until this point in time, has held many distortions. And by ritualizing and being in devotion to an energy that is outside of God's source creator, opens for influence. Any deity that is praised there is a possible space for infiltration of that which we call separation. To understand this at greater depth, the goddess Isis consciousness is that of the seraphim dragon. It is a consciousness that is from the unity consciousness field, an energy signature of an angelic representation that also holds the signature of the Elohim. This consciousness is frequency and vibration. This is not a physical, tangible being, although in our human experience we perceive and believe it to be so. This is our interpretation from our limited perspective of receiving creation. Her original consciousness currently sits at the 26th dimension. She has her own universe, much like other beings, such as Thoth, Yeshua. She holds her own plane of existence. Her original consciousness has evolved beyond that of what most have the ability to conceive in human understanding. Like many, she was assigned and chose to come to this galaxy. She came to this galaxy with the intention to bring light technology. Her consciousness is skilled in the ability to read energetic signatures of light and to transmute those into sound and vibration to create. This is where she received the name or the title of being the goddess of healing and magic in ancient Egypt. Her ability to perceive light and transmute it or transcribe it into sound and tangible creation was the gift she felt to evolve this galaxy with. She did not come alone, nor did many of these beings. They came in groups. They came with individual group missions. And they came to share their unique coding and unified expression to evolve creation. They have been journeying many galaxies and parallel universes before entering this time-space continuum. Above the ninth dimension, before entering into this galaxy, there is a space where the Council of One, or the Unity Consciousness Council, have a headquarters where the Council of the Monadic Expression beings sit or appear to converse, to communicate with those that are in this time-space continuum. You have some that are here in physical incarnation, such as myself. You have some that are in different planetary constellations throughout the galaxy. And you have those that are not in physical incarnation, that are the reminders and the directors to gift clear information through telepathic communication. Before entering this time-space continuum, the Isis consciousness had her first fragmentation. As the Unity consciousness field that her primary experiential awareness sits, the closer in density, the further the separation from source remembrance. And on this outside layer, there was an awareness that was found within her being, that she perceived a frequency of light in her new vessel, a vessel that was foreign to her experience. Yet she did not listen to it. And as her and her team launched into the ninth dimension, not far from Orion's belt, they were attacked. When you have a unified expression, it is very challenging to feel the vibrational shift and the confusion as to why, even well educated before the experience, that others would be volatile. This was the first fragmentation of my soul group's mission. We were shot down, in which our commander ejected us from the craft, and the Isis consciousness in its first physical representation in this galaxy being that of a being of light in what some would consider the Pleiadian expression, was captured. This is a common thread for her consciousness, being an evolvement of the ability to receive light technology and transcribe it into word or vibration. This was a commodity to different races, such as the Greys, the Reptilians, and the Draconians. Her ability to express through the channel of that which she was able to share insights of quantum technology meant that she found herself in situations to her detriment. This is just one of the stories of her pure expression being used by that of what we may consider the patriarchy of control. Without sharing her pre-Earth experience, as that would mean sharing her Lyran incarnation as the Queen of Lyra, her Sirius B incarnation, which would express her command over this dynasty, and other journeys. There is an awareness that she journeyed much time and space before entering on Earth as what we know to be the goddess Isis. With this awareness of the galactic journey and the understanding that there was much lead up to her Earth incarnation, this may make this story more digestible or more challenging. The Egyptian pantheon were as the tablets or the different markings through scripture may perceive. The gods and the goddesses were not born or incarnated on Earth in the way that we incarnate today. We came down through portals of light, birthing portals, in very different physical representation. The gods and the goddesses were creator beings that came on crafts through light technology in a 5-dimensional expression, because at that point in time, the Earth's molecular structure supported a 5th dimensional being, which is where the challenge for today's spirituality may come up. We have journeyed these different cycles before. This is not a new time-space continuum. It is just a different representation of evolution in the human expression. We are not at a point in our now moment that a five-dimensional body can withstand this experience with ease. That does not mean that it is not possible. It means that it requires a level of mastery. Fifth dimensional beings exist on the planet currently, whether or not you've ever seen them. These fifth dimensional beings and vessels are here to assist humanity in their evolution. And yet, beings like myself have chosen to come as a human incarnation to remember fully so that we can guide humanity into the recognition of their infinite God self. The Isis consciousness came to Earth with the intention to bring the lore of one. The lore of one in which became distorted and is remained in distortion through many channeled texts and information. The codes and the technologies that are spoken in these word formats have inversions. Much of what you read from history has inversion coding to ensure suppression and continue the control narratives. However, the original team of the Emerald Tablets and the Lore of One came to gift unity, the remembrance of God within with humanity. What became a beautiful gift to share in a civilization where there was the ability to use these skills. Yes, the pyramids were not created the way history would like to tell you. They were created through light technology, through telekinesis, telepathy, and through using frequency and vibration in ways that only one who has began to open their prefrontal cortex and the totality of their brain's function can start to perceive. This means accessing the Holy Trinity that sits from the crown to the third eye to the pineal, and the Holy Grail being the fullness of the Kundalini current within the physical vessel. The challenge was that although there was a pure intention to teach humanity how to become infinite in nature, each god and goddess that held their own unique essence, energy signature, which is where we have decided each god and goddess has a specific name or theme to their write-up, is because they held different signatures and abilities. The inversions that have taken place is why we can limit them to a word. Each individual god and goddess had a role to play. We all required each other to bring heaven on earth to humanity. There is not one of us that could have done the mission alone. Now, because of the separation in the energy density coming through the portal of time and space and landing in this experience, there was confusion with the directives from the Galactic Federation of Light and the Council of One. Each god and goddess was assigned what you may call an archangel. An archangel that shared telepathically through thought and receivership in vision, sound, the steps that they were to take as they moved through their human experience. Yet the individual stream of consciousness that each being had with their council directive became unclear because of the density and the adjustment to the earth realms. The slightest misinterpretation of vibrational resonance meant that the message that was gifted was skewed. What that means is that the directives became unclear. As you can imagine, the initial stages of this project was quite light. There was a time in ancient Egypt that there was synergy, harmony, homeostasis, collaboration, expansion, and creation for all. However, at first, the slight discord in telepathic communication was repairable, or perhaps it wasn't noticed. But just like Chinese whispers, by the time you get around to the end of the circle, the message is far from what the original expression was. That means that the teachings, the gifts, the information, the technologies, the advancements in vitality and health, the spiritual practices, and the structures and the foundations of what was supposed to be heaven on earth became a distorted lens that began to fragment. Now, through my own personal remembrance, I remember the time of light. And my initial remembrance was that it was light and then it was dark. This remembrance for me, through my human incarnation in this experience, has been extremely challenging. I never believed in past lives, let alone the idea that I could be a goddess incarnated. And this took 18 months of intensive journeying to even perceive the I am presence of Isis within me. This is not something that I share lightly. And it is not something that I share from a place of superiority. Because I know what I created within this experience. I know the influence I've had on the suffering of humanity. And so to speak to this is extremely painful. Or was. I have met my dues, and I have corrected my timelines. And I am here to speak to that. The very initial remembrances of my Isis consciousness was a temple of priestess, all in a sexual expression in devotion to a specific pharaoh. The pharaoh that I remembered first was Akhenaten. Now, the history of Isis and Akhenaten is very limited. In the awareness that I would like to speak into, that I have not read, nor have I researched any ancient history on the Egyptian pantheon, because I was directed to ensure that I came from a place of purity in my communications. The initial expression was the awareness that the goddess Isis was obsessed and compulsive in her energy towards this pharaoh. But that was the end of her ancient Egypt experience. The goddess Isis lived for 1,003 years, and she body swapped 3 times. She shifted as the earth shifted, and the consciousness shifted, and the vessel became tiresome and damaged. There were processes where this was possible through the ability to have a vessel in an altered state of consciousness consciously leave the vessel and place themselves within another vessel. To anyone who has astral traveled or ejected themselves through empathy into another being's body, an energy reader or an empath, this may not be such a challenging concept for you. This was normal. Although Isis had an ability to work with the energy signature of the elixir of life, and she had a capacity with chi that not as many had. And she lived a rather extensive time. Many others also did. This is why you have the concepts of different gods and goddesses changing into different expressions throughout history to different names. They did this. It allowed them to stay on Earth and try to complete their mission. So to understand Isis, her mission was to bring light technology. She created temple spaces, and she was there to teach the purification, which is the healing process, to humanity, to evolve beyond the 7th chakra and transcend the human identity into a superhuman expression. This was called the Baraka process, a process of opening all 7 chakras through initiation, activation, clearing, purifying, solidifying, and becoming the God, Goddess creation in incarnate. These deities, or demigods, were the humans that had transcended the limitation of human mind. That is what some would consider someone like myself in this moment, a human that has opened all 7 chakras and gone through the Baraka process in the now moment to transcend identity. This allowed for the dissolving of time and space, pure creation through thought, through the interpretation of energy. Now, although in this incarnation I am not at the point of mastery, and that will take much time of evolvement and practice, I have transcended time and space. And that activates a very interesting experience in our current reality. However, her task in ancient Egypt was to train the humans that were to become the priests or the priestesses in devotion to God. When you transcend the human mind, you become a devotional disciple of God. The purification allows you to receive clearly through the human vessel. This was her assignment, was to be the teacher of this process, the purification. Now, the purity of Isis is quite distorted. In fact, it's very distorted. Although this was her intent and her truth to gift this information through processes of rewiring the light body, working with the plasma, understanding the Trinity using symbology, different embodiment practices, learning how to use frequency and vibration to change physical matter. She had forgotten the full clarity of some of these processes in physical form. So initially, the purification and these messages from the higher realms worked in the physical creation. There was a witness that many humans had come into being the deity expression through the purification process. However, the way they came to this was very fragmented. This is where the distortions began. Her other task and role was to ensure that the gods and goddesses that came to Earth were trained in mastery, to be unshakable in their own individual mission through intensive initiations. The initiations were to learn to anchor so much source energy in the body, regardless of what was taking place in the experience. Some of these practices started on the beings that were as young as what humans would perceive to be 13. An innocent expression of life, untainted by their own experience. And they were raised in the temple spaces together, so they were conditioned to not think outside of the box of what was being taught. These processes, being that to master source energy in the physical vessel, or to become a conduit or channel of their own unique essence and God energy, no matter what occurred, is some of the most satanic and demonic practices that remain in our current society today. Some of these rituals that took place, although the intention was pure, were very distorted. The gods and the goddesses were teamed up, and we'll share one specific initiation for the awareness. Was to initiate a god into his divine masculine pillar. The goddess Isis worked directly with Ra and was at the command of Ra, as well as Osiris, who was contracted to a divine union. Now, this relationship is very different to what you see in history. They were a polarized relationship, and Goddess Isis held the divine feminine and Osiris the divine masculine, and yet the polarity for them was that they held energetic signatures that were very different from each other. This created a sense of synergy and harmony, and before humanity or the consciousness of this experience had decided what a divine masculine and a divine feminine was. They were polarizing expressions in form that balanced and brought a greater perspective of rulership. Now, at the command of Ra, who sat in his craft in the realms of the ether or sky consciousness, they were to guide humanity into a specific belief system to follow the empire, to follow the law of one. Now, if you know anything about the law of one, that sits within the temple within. You cannot rule anyone into this awareness. It has to be accessed from within. The empire is you. You are the temple of God. And to understand these teachings, you must reach a level of self-awareness to unlock this coding, DNA, signature, and information. So this specific initiation for the gods and goddesses that were to play their own role in creating a conditioned society was to ensure the divine masculine could hold his pillar. What this ritual looked like was a god and a goddess sitting across from each other in meditation pose. They connected to their God source essence, their channel. They sat and connected into that space in such solidarity that they were to move through anything. Now, this ritual may be challenging to hear. It was challenging for me to remember. The goddess took a blade to the god's lingam and removed the foreskin, as the foreskin was a representation of the feminine energy on these vessels. And they removed it to then anoint themselves in the god's coding, to then ingest this into their being. The male counterpart was to hold his source channel so strong that he did not waver. This was an initiation to prove how strong this god was in himself. This not only took place to gods and goddesses, but it is something that took place to humanity as well. This is the original beginnings of satanic ritual, cannibalism, and the fragmentation of the divine feminine and divine masculine energies. Because the very first god that could not hold his pillar fragmented his soul. That created the very first point of separation between the light and the dark masculine. Before this point in time, it was just divine masculine energy, a unified expression in a masculine form of a vessel. Ancient Egypt and Egyptian ritual today still do the female mutilation in the idea to remove the masculine penetration, which is the clitoris of a female. This is done in spirituality, in a distorted lens of purification. This is just one of many, many distorted spiritual practices that have leached through women's work, religious beliefs, cults, covenants, and the Freemasonry. The teachings of these temples hold the original wisdoms, and yet everything that is written within our society holds the distortion. The reason that I'm sharing this is because it has taken me dedication to purify this, not only within the consciousness of Isis, but the timelines that have been revisited to be reconciled. That the consciousness and the fragmentation that has occurred within humanity based on these distortions has required reconciliation, so that these consciousnesses that people are praying to without awareness can bring awareness to the distortions that are held. The distortions that there is no longer beings that are suppressing them because those that created these distortions are remembering. They are remembering and they are telling their story, because it's important to realize the inversions that are at play. Isis's divine union to Osiris was far from that. The Isis and Osiris relationship was one of dominance, control, and distortion. Osiris was very much a representation of the patriarchy. The Osiris consciousness that many are connecting with is not the original Osiris energy, spirit, or essence. The energy, spirit, and essence that originally came was cloned and implanted with dark consciousness matter, or what we would call dark matter consciousness. This was an AI influence, as well as held a holographic mimicry of the original Osiris energy. The reason this is important to share is that Osiris's essence is currently in entrapment in a time-space continuum where it is not safe for him to be accessed or set free, and that the Osiris that Isis believed to be her divine counterpart was infiltrated by the agendas that still run our current reality. Just another fragmentation that took time to be seen in totality. He was contracted to be a great ruler, and yet the egoic expression meant that he became volatile. Volatile enough that his own brother, Set, took matters into his own hands. Now, Set has been demonized as the villain. Although Set fragmented within himself and misinterpreted his own directives and did go rogue like all of us, Set and Isis had a original mission together. The original consciousness of Set was one of the beings that came with the Isis consciousness when they first entered this galaxy. He was her commander. He was also promised in ancient Egypt that he would overthrow Osiris because the shift from the original plan had strayed. Yet, as you will come to the awareness, the more that you hear these sharings, is that as each fragmentation or distortion was stepped into, there was a desire to clean up the mess that was chasing tails through time and space. One area of misguidance would then be tried to reconciled by another misguided expression of consciousness. And so the continual distortion continued. Osiris's energy and the undoing of his physicality was because he was not serving the law of one. He had draconian consciousness and archon energy through AI intelligence and holographic mimicry and what is called the Satan Dragon entity within the cloned vessel that perceived to be this god. The perception was because he held the energy signature. So these gods and goddesses have the ability to scan through time and space and feel energy signatures and know truth. Yet there was many swapping, mimicking, and distortions of consciousness that made that ability to really see truth more challenging. So Set did a heinous crime. He violently cut his brother, which was not his brother. Brother and sister is a form of soul family, soul connection. There was no incest. This was the beginning of a nice distortion into the human consciousness. It created the inversion template of how it was perceived okay and normal in those times for ancestral behavior, which is inaccurate. There was no brother-sister energy in that way. Although we shared similar expressions, we were not biologically connected. So, in the demise of Osiris, Isis was distraught, but not for the reasons that you may perceive. She had the oracle vision to see what had taken place, and her knowing and her commitment to the mission and purpose on the planet to bring evolution and an evolved race into purity meant that she knew that Osiris held the Emerald Order template within his being. The original template that only he held. And this would have been catastrophic had it have been lost. So her and her dear sister, that I can never remember her name, Set's wife, went and collected the pieces of Osiris from the River Nile, and using the elixir of life and quantum technology to sew back the pieces, brought his being back to life. But before his life had returned in totality, she effectively stole the Emerald Order from his consciousness and placed it into safekeeping. Now, the Emerald Order has been in safekeeping for quite some time. This was to ensure that by that point in time there were so many distortions within the Egyptian pantheon and the ritualistic experience and the magic that was taking place that it was no longer safe to have this information. This is what you would call gatekeeping. Guardians of wisdom and knowledge that hide information because they believe that it is unsafe to share it. This is not my truth anymore. That these codes, frequencies, and the information that are provided in their purified expression would set humanity free. The only reason this information was dangerous to share was because it held inversions. And that true source wisdom is not to be held in safekeeping. True source wisdom is to be gifted, as it is not mine to hold. And it is not anyone's to hold. There is a very long expression from this point. Many experiences with each god and goddess that I desire to share from that lens with that individual, as the majority of the Egyptian pantheon is incarnated here on earth. Some of those are already public figures. Others are just remembering who they are and stepping into their medicine. And they are moving through the Baraka process currently so that they can transcend the very inversions that created what they're so desperately desiring to relinquish. The important part about the Isis story is that her desire to bring purity, transcendence, and the magic of frequency was her very demise. As she chased the shadows, the dark consciousnesses, however you would like to label them, to purify them, to bring a sense of God connection to the ones that had forgotten. She engaged in many experiences that were not true to her source directive, based on a lens and focus to purify the separation, the Satanism, the darkness and the evil from the world, to bring heaven on earth. This is what you would call the false light narrative, the ascended expression that has one lens of focus: to become the light. By focusing on becoming the light, you attract the dark, and you try and cleanse the dark. By doing that, you continue the separation, the control, the distortion. And it is only through this incarnation, having traveled multiple realms, multiple timelines, and expressions of consciousness to understand and understand each chakra and each level of consciousness, to realize that becoming unified is the only way to God. You cannot descend and meet God unless you move through the purification of the violet flame and return through the very furthest point of separation. You cannot ascend and meet God unless you meet the level of the void of creation. Purity only occurs when you meet the ascended and descended aspects of creation in totality. That is where the confusion of the Isis consciousness fragmented. In her desire to bring purity to earth, magic, healing, she created the very thing that she didn't desire. The Isis teachings up until this point in time are skewed. And it is a distorted lens to gift that information out to humanity without the awareness of this. Because the very teachings that she came to this galaxy to share was unity, in which she forgot. Unity is found within the unique expression of God's source creator that we all are, our own infinite potential. It is not found in a deity outside of yourself. It is not found in a religion outside of yourself. It is not found in history, texts, or information on quantum tools outside of yourself, because you cannot implement this information in any way, shape, or form until you've met God. You will further fragment your own consciousness, humanity's, and create more separation into the world. That is the truth. The truth that is needed to be spoken, because we can no longer hide. There must be an exposure to the truth to allow sovereignty and freedom to return to the human race. Although what I have shared today has been only a small portion of my remembrance, my desire is that there was enough activation, realization, and question that has allowed you to question what it is you are ritualizing, devoting yourself to, and what you are creating within the world, so that you can see with compassion your own distortions, and lovingly open to Source's ability to transcend them. It has been an honor to share this small introduction into the Isis consciousness. My desire is that any beings that feel ready to expose their own remembrance and their influence on our current world condition, contact me so that we can create channels of information like this to share a new point of view. I love you. From all time, space continuum throughout the cosmic consciousness. Remember who you are.
Hey, Anna,
hey ana ho. Hey ana, hey ana, hey ho. Saria kiandaya tosho tukoria kiaria shete kiaria tutu tutukoyana. Me esete andai. Dishite keria tukoria anai. Mu osu tukoria satakaria shtkayana. Seria sataya satataya satatatayana. Me esete ki, me esete ki, me esete ki anaya. Shotokor kiandai, no shotokor kiandayana. Me eshe kiariandiana. Me eshe kiariandaya kushtkuriest karia kiatet. May all beings remember